Hello, and welcome to another edition of Save Your Sanity live stream. There's so many things to talk about generally, and we talk about so many things here in the live stream. But right now, we're taking advantage of talking very specifically about things that have been highlighted as good or bad or difficult or joyful during this COVID time. Earlier today, you may have noticed the Facebook Live that I did. We were talking with a psychotherapist about what I called COVID closeness and how 24/7 with somebody, even if you love them to bits, can sometimes be a little grating. So if you missed that one, go and pick it up. But today I'm going to talk with my friend Jason Levoy. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hi, so good to be here with you again.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. And Jason is a person who brings us a lot of resources about divorces. In fact, he calls himself the divorce resource guy. And I thought it would be really good to talk about people who are caught in the midst of divorce during COVID, because even if you were just about to file, and you'd worked up all of the energy you needed to do that, and then this hit, and then the courts were closed for a bit, and people were figuring things out. So emotionally, things might have changed. You may feel thwarted in the process. You may be in the middle of divorce. You may be having difficulty having a person served with papers. You may be in difficulty or fear and wanting to get a restraining order. So there are so many pieces to this puzzle. So let's just start here. What does it take to navigate the divorce process with confidence and integrity, Jason?
Well, you want to start in a non-COVID environment or in the COVID
Yeah,
environment?
just generally, what does it take? And then let's be specific later.
It takes awareness and knowledge and confidence, frankly. And I always frame it in the way of forming your divorce team. Everybody, ideally, before anything is filed with the court, um, should take the time to prepare, and because in my opinion, preparation is probably the most important phase, part of the whole process. And if you prepare properly, and part of that preparation includes forming your divorce team, which we can get into in more detail if you want. But once you have those right people around you to support you through what's going to be a roller coaster of a ride, especially if you're dealing with a hijackal or there's going to be it's going to be a contested divorce environment, then you need to be prepared for those ups and downs.
For absolutely sure. I tell people all the time, unless there's physical or sexual abuse, where we're going to start is to practice and prepare. We're going to practice new skills. We're going to practice new vision. We're going to practice new mindset. We're going to practice being empowered as opposed to being coward.
Yes.
and then we'll practice those things and see if they make any difference in the relationship. They'll definitely make a difference in you, because what I find with people who've been with hijackals, and I think everybody who listens to me knows that that's my trademark term for people that I define as people who hijack relationships for their own purposes and then relentlessly scavenge them for power, status, and control. So these are people with patterns, traits, and cycles of people who have narcissistic tendencies or sociopathic tendencies and all. And when you're in that situation, unless there's physical or sexual abuse, as I said, you've been worn down, torn down, and put down a few too many times, and you may be a little bit of a doormat by now. So we need to get you built back up. We need you up on your feet and standing steady and stable and ready to make straightforward eye contact with the issue here. And that takes empowerment, because many times people are in these difficult situations. They're so worn down that they'll say things to me, and I have clients all over the world, just like you probably do, and they say, "Oh, I just need to get out of here. I don't care if I have anything. I'm just gonna grab the kids and run." And I'm going, "No, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's get you prepared. Let's get you in a place where you have some equanimity, where you have some strength, where you feel empowered, because when you get out of the relationship, if that's your choice, you want to move on in that condition, not sitting in some studio apartment and a mess on the floor going, now I don't know what to do."
Exactly. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the word empowerment, because that really is such a key word, and a huge part of preparing for any divorce, is that you want to feel empowered. And one of the ways to feel empowered is by surrounding yourself with the right team, to help you and to help empower you. And to be empowered means to have the information that you're perhaps lacking at the beginning. Not to sound cliche, but knowledge truly is power, especially in a divorce. And another thing you touched on, which I wanted to just emphasize, is that usually when people are ready to get divorced, sometimes maybe it's been brimming for a long time, and you maybe have been emotionally and mentally ready. And so it's not such a big emotional jump for you to start the process. But most times it is. Even, just going through a divorce is emotional. That's what makes them oftentimes so difficult, from a legal standpoint, is when the emotions get intertwined. But like anything in life, you never want to make really important decisions when you're emotional about something. It's kind of like, we've all wanted, whatever it is, an impulse buy, whether it's a TV or whatever new toy you might be into, right? And so what I try to do personally is, if I really want something, to make sure it's not shiny object syndrome, I will let it sit for a few days or longer. And if I still want it, and then maybe it's something real there. But most of the time it goes away and I could care less. But especially when you're talking about divorce, you're talking about if you have children, and you're dealing with custody issues and parenting time and, assets and money. I can appreciate somebody in a bad emotional place, especially if you are still living under the same roof with your soon-to-be ex. It's really tough. And I hear countless times, as I'm sure you do, that, all right, I've just had enough. I'll give him whatever he wants. I just want this over. But that is an emotional moment, where you're making a decision most of the time more emotionally than based on logic and judgment. So those are the types of things that you just want to, if you're prepared and you have the right team around you to support you, you can make decisions in the right frame of mind.
Well, yes, and, again, you're exhausted at that point. And, strangely enough, I hear more men say to me than women, "I just want to get out of this. I'll give her anything she wants. Just let me out." I hear it that way. And from women, I hear, "I just have to get out of here. I'm just going to make a run for it." And both of those positions are unwise. And as you say, based on exhaustion and emotion, like, I can't do it a moment longer. And the truth is, yes, you can. But as you say, you need a divorce team. So who's on a divorce team, Jason?
Well, I always start with what I call the trifecta of awesomeness. It's in an ideal situation, you're an attorney, a therapist, to handle the emotional aspects of going through a divorce, and then either a coach or a finance expert, depending on your specific situation, and your needs. And then those are like the three pillars. And then you could always add on more after that, depending on your specific situation. No two situations, no two divorces are the same. And so that's why when people, one of the things that make me cringe is when people tell me, "Oh, well, my friend who got divorced, she told me that I should expect X, Y, and Z." or this is what happened in my neighbor's divorce. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can have almost identical houses and kids. A divorce is like a snowflake. There are no two alike.
Right.
It is so fact specific to you and your life and your situations that that's where people get into trouble, is when they start comparing their divorce to somebody else's. And you really have to focus and almost have tunnel vision in that respect. And having the right team around you to keep you focused on really the business at hand is extremely helpful.
So you said an attorney, a coach, and
A therapist.
a therapist. Good. Well, that's what I was pretty sure I heard. So, let's make sure we can see that one. A very important thing to do. And I don't think that, I know that many people don't have a lot of funds, particularly when they're divorcing hijackals, because hijackals have a tendency to take over all the finances. And so that's one of the ways of keeping their partners in the dark and under their thumb. And that can be a difficulty, but your life is worth it. It's very important to know that your life is worth it and the life of your children is worth it. So that's good information, Jason. Let's talk about what's really going on now, because we've gotten so much change in our environment that we're not sure, can I still do things? Is the court operating? Are they open? Are they doing things via video? What's going on? So give us a little overview from your side. Now, I know that you're in New Jersey and that you can't speak for every state and what's going on, but what generally do you think is happening just now?
Well, New Jersey is one, as you know, is one of the hardest hit states, especially where I am in northern New Jersey, only a few miles from New York. So what I would say from what I know that's going on in this area, I've heard similar stories going on in other states, or it's better in other states, but it's not worse. It's bad enough as it is here, and basically what's happened is. From a family court, when you're talking about the family courts and their processing, they are up and running, not nearly at the capacity they were pre-shutdown. And it was hard enough pre-COVID-19 getting things pushed through the family court system, pretty much everywhere. I'm sure you hear complaints all the time, why is my divorce taking so long? And that's a very broad statement, and there's probably a number of reasons, but the court system is one of the factors, and how slow they move. And they're overwhelmed most of the time. So when everything shut down, it took the courts, I would say, a good month to kind of get their act together, and figure out how it's going to work. And how it's working here in New Jersey now is that there are, in the family court system, things are up and running. For emergent matters such as domestic violence,
Restraining orders.
restraining orders, they are available, and judges are ready. And a lot of hearings are being held virtually. The court is, on one hand, they're attempting to do video hearings, such as Zoom, but frankly, that's not working super well right now. It's still a work in progress, and I'm sure they'll get there. But they're doing a lot of telephonic hearings, and conference calls, and things are moving in that respect. Now, emergent matters obviously will take precedence over everything else, and right now I think that's the bulk of what's being handled. People
What's an
who are
emergent matter? Like
restraining orders.
violence, domestic violence, restraining orders, things where somebody could get hurt.
Absolutely. Anything relating to domestic violence, that's an emergent matter. So those can be heard timely. And you should, if you have any questions about how that would work where you live, depending on what state you live, all you have to do is Google your court website, and there's a lot of information that hopefully will be on there. Um, or give a quick call to the family court division where you live, and they are working. And people, if they don't answer the phone directly, should get back to you timely and give you some direction. But that is up and running. The courts have not shut down. They're just kind of regrouping.
Mhm.
But if you're in the
Well,
middle of a divorce and there's nothing emergent, or there's no sense of urgency from the sense of the court, then you're kind of in a standstill right now, and you're getting pushed to the back of the line for the time being. But I'm hoping that will start becoming more fluid in the next month or so.
well, it was already a slow process.
Right.
I mean, it was absurdly slow before. So I can't imagine when you put backlog in front of absurdly slow before, how incredibly slow it's going to be when we resume whatever it is we resume and what it looks like.
Yeah, I wouldn't stand up waiting.
Yeah, bring your bed. That line's not moving very quickly.
It, it's
You know,
it,
I want to ask you some very specific questions because I know my audience wants to know. And I want to talk about what's up when you're getting a divorce from an emotionally abusive person. And maybe they're not physically threatening you. Maybe they're verbally and emotionally abusive, and it hasn't gone to some physical or sexual abuse position. So that wouldn't really be seen as an emergent issue. But where is that line, Jason, when you are threatened by physical abuse? Is that the line where you can expect to get some action? Where is that moment when it becomes an emergent issue if there aren't bruises?
that's a great question, and the answer is it depends. And that answer, I think, is more personal to the person in that situation than anybody else. The People think of domestic violence, and I think the first thing most people think about is physical abuse. Um, but that's not the case. Domestic violence does include emotional and verbal abuse. Um, I know in New Jersey and most states, harassment is included in the list of what constitutes an act of domestic violence. Um, so, what I would tell people is if you feel that your safety is at risk, um, that's domestic violence to you.
Mm-hmm.
And um, go take the necessary steps to put yourself in a safe environment. And whether that's making an application to the court for a restraining order, then maybe that's the step, and the judge will decide that. But it's very fact specific, and so just like divorces, no two domestic violence situations are alike, yeah, either. So
So
uh,
is it worth reporting it to the police? If somebody threatens you, if you're not here when I get home, I'm going to take out my gun and go find you. Is that worth reporting to the police at this moment?
well, that's a threat. That's a real threat, at least to me. Any threat of violence against you, or threatening to harm you in any way, I think should be taken seriously.
It's assault, isn't it, to be threatened?
It, well, it's verbal assault, yeah. And so a threat of physical harm can be domestic violence, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
And there was a big change that I've spoken several times about on social media and things in April. Very quietly, this administration that we currently are dealing with, they went in and they completely rewrote the definition of domestic violence and put it back 50 years. All the work that had been done by the previous administration to have it list things like coercive control or financial abuse or emotional abuse, and all those things were so carefully specified. And in April, without any fanfare or any PR at all, it got changed to being crimes of violence, and that meant somebody had to get hurt. Now, fortunately, every police jurisdiction and states and things also have opportunities to define these things, but it can be very confusing for someone if they think that it's not enough of a threat to go to the police. And I'll give you an example. This morning, someone asked, in fact, she said this. She said, "I'm pregnant. I am due in the 1st of June. I am with my partner and his son. They are both the same. They both have guns. I am frightened. I do not want anything to do with these people. I don't know how to get away. What should I do? I'm in a safe place right now, but what should I do?" She was suggesting that she didn't know how to make a break completely from these people. And I said, "Well, have you been to the police?" "No, I don't want to go to the police because if he and his son find out that I went to the police, they will for sure come after me with guns." And so my response was, actually, if they're going to come after you with guns, they're going to come after you with guns no matter what. It is really important for you to stand up and tell somebody someone has threatened you. And that was a big issue. There was a lot of discussion. This was in a group on social media. There was a lot of discussion like, "Oh, I don't know, I would be afraid to tell the police because then they'd think I told on them and they'd lose their job and then it would be my fault." And it got into all of these pieces. So here was somebody who is pregnant, alone, safely out of the house, doesn't know how to proceed in order to not feel unsafe. What kinds of things would you suggest to a person like that?
And I've talked with people in similar situations to that, and it's never easy. But you know, they're reaching out for help to you when she makes that statement and tells you what's going on in her life. She's reaching out. So then my typical response to that is to want to help you, right? And direct you to options. There's always options.
Mm-hmm.
Even when people don't think there are options, there are options. It's just what are they willing to do? And so I always tell people, if you feel your physical well-being is at risk, you need to take action. And
Yes.
if you're worried about what somebody's going to do or think after you take action, that's perfectly normal and acceptable. But we can deal with that, and we can prepare and plan if you have the time to do that. And that's just like planning for divorce, planning to be safe and to kind of extricate yourself from a possible domestic violence environment is extremely important. So plan, have a plan is number one. And obviously we would work with that person to figure out what that plan would be.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the alternative for that person, right?
Well, that's what I said. The thread went on for quite a while, and I said, okay, you can't stay where you are forever. The people where you are concerned that these people are going to come with their guns to their house. I mean, we get this cascade of problems because she's safe right now, but she's afraid. The people who are keeping her safe, they weren't prepared to go to the police. She wasn't prepared to go to the police. The people who own the house and are keeping her safe are saying, "I don't know how long you can stay here because now we're unsafe too." It was a very multivalent problem. And someone has to get involved. And because I have clients all over the world, I have to be careful because I was talking with somebody who's in a small town in Canada. And I'm from Canada, so I'm very aware. And hijackals like to have friends who are police. And so, small town,
Yep.
wink, wink, nod, nod. Okay, there she goes again, complaining about me. So the woman would call the police would come, they would stand outside, talk to the guy, go away. So there was no option for her to go to the police for some kind of respite. And then when she went to a shelter and she started to talk to domestic violence people, they admitted that the police were part of the problem that they were experiencing. And so there are variations. Some places like here in San Diego, if a person calls and says there's a problem, the police attend. One of the things that this county does is every single case is reported, every report is taken. Nobody just goes and says, well, it seemed okay and walks away. No, they take a statement from both people.
Mhm.
It's very, very precise. But other places don't do that. So we're
Right.
dealing with a wide variety of things. So that's probably a topic for another day, and we only have a short period of time. So if somebody is experiencing this in this time of lockdown, semi-lockdown, whatever it is we're in, wherever you happen to be, I hear you agreeing with me that this process is going to be lengthened. But if you are in a situation where there is urgent potential or actual physical violence, then you may be made a priority. But as far as actually enacting the divorce itself, we did hear you say that that long procedure is probably going to get longer.
Probably. Again, everywhere is different, but I could almost feel comfortable guaranteeing you it's not going to get quicker.
Well, I'm with you. High five on that one. That's not going
Right?
to happen.
Pretty comfortable, almost guaranteeing that.
Yeah, I think we can take that one to the bank.
So
Absolutely.
patience is going to have to be. If you had it before, you're going to have to keep it, and if you didn't have it before, you're going to have to find some, and kind of roll with the punches while
Ooh,
everybody is figuring this out.
can we change that phrase?
Oh yeah, we don't want to say roll with the punches.
No,
No punches.
no, 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 no. Cancel that.
Yeah,
What you
strike
want
that.
to be is safe in the meantime, right? Do
Absolutely.
everything you can to be safe in the meantime. So we just have a few minutes left, Jason. So I want to ask you a question that I know people ask me all the time. If people are in a situation where there is emotional and verbal abuse, maybe it hasn't escalated to sexual or physical abuse, but they're in a situation where there is abuse, what is the best way to find an attorney to be on that trifecta of awesomeness?
Well, I always say if people don't know any attorneys, and you're kind of starting at just zero. Family and friends are a good start, because everybody, like doctors and dentists, everybody knows an attorney somewhere. Whether it might not be directly, but it might be a friend of yours, it might be a coworker of yours. It's not too difficult to get some names, so that's a start. That's not the end of the process, though. Call your local bar association. Um, they can give you referrals, or at
Mm-hmm.
least lead you in the right direction. And another great resource I always give people is a website called avvo.com, avvo.com. And you can find uh, vetted professionals in your area through that website too. And supposedly they have real reviews from clients and things like that. And from my experience, it's been a pretty good resource, and so that's a great place to start too. And just get a collection. It doesn't have to be 10 or 15, 20 names. Five, 3 to 5, and start there. And you should be on your way to finding somebody. But most importantly, and this could be a whole topic for another day too, is when you're looking for an attorney, just make sure it's somebody that you are comfortable with, um, and that you can relate to and feel um, some sort of connection. Because I can't tell you how many people I talk to who, on top of all the stresses of dealing with their divorce, they have stresses dealing with their attorney. So
Mhm.
we don't need that. You don't need that.
Well, and you need to also go beyond friends and family and all and get those names and then interview those people, particularly if you're with a hijackal, a toxic person, because you need an attorney who has expertise in facing those people in court. Because what I know from previously going to court on behalf of my clients, which I don't do anymore, is that hijackal clients fire attorneys till they get a hijackal attorney. And now you have two hijackals in the court trying to make you small and wrong and insignificant and get everything that they want and run absolute roughshod over you. So when you're interviewing, you need to ask, you stick with it. Don't just take their, have you worked with difficult? No, don't. That's not enough of a question. Have you actually worked with people who are manipulating, charming, people who will lie bold-facedly and show no signs of lying, people who are willing to stand up in court and lie to the court without any signs of trepidation and then be backed up by their attorney? You have to have someone on your side who can dive right into those lies and is willing to.
Right.
And these are deep questions. Kristen Walker and I did she's the person who owns mentalhealthnewsradio.com, mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Save Your Sanity podcast is carried on that network. And she and I did a 1 hour conversation on how to choose a therapist. Well, maybe you and I should do one on how to choose an attorney, because there are so many permutations of what you need when you're seeking divorce. You need to find the right one that has the expertise to understand your side so they can really work well on your behalf.
That is so true and cannot be understated. That's a big part of what I do as a coach. I spend a lot of time with people on, choosing the right attorney for you, and people who have attorneys and who are not comfortable or don't think it's going well, whether they should uh, find a new attorney and how to do that, or try to repair that relationship. We definitely should do something else on that, because that there's definitely enough there for its own show. And I've written articles. You can find them on my website, on my blog,
Right.
on with a baseline list of questions to ask in any attorney consultation for a divorce. It doesn't cover everything, but it's just the tip of the iceberg, because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll do that. I think that would be a wonderful gift to give and have on our websites and everything for people and on YouTube. And you can find Jason at jasonlevoy.com. And, if you want to hear more from him, he did a podcast with me on my Emotional Savvy podcast. There's over 100 episodes over there. I'm not currently adding to it because I pay all my attention to Save Your Sanity podcast. But if you go to Emotional Savvy and put in his name, you will quickly find his episode and learn even more than we've spoken about before. And go over to SaveYourSanityPodcast.com, and there's over 110 episodes over there for dealing with the toxic people in your life. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us, Jason.
Oh, it was such a great pleasure to be back with you and have a nice discussion again.
Thank you. This is Jason Levoy, and he is the divorce resource guy. You find him at jasonlevoy.com. And I have that on the screen for you right there. So
There
make
it is.
sure, pardon, there it is. Yeah. And take advantage of his service. He's the coach you need in that trifecta of awesomeness, who's going to help you find the right person. And and walk you through the process so you feel you have someone in your corner. And if you happen to be with a toxic person, I'm going to be that therapist who's going to be the other person in that trifecta. Jason will find you the attorney, and we'll make a great team.
And the two of the three are right here.
That's right. There you go. You don't have to look a moment further. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. I'm so glad you joined us. If you are listening to the replay, I will be following up. Jason will be following up. We'll be watching the comments, or if you have any questions, just put them in Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching, and we will follow up with that. In the meantime, stay tuned to Save Your Sanity podcast. Stay tuned to the YouTube channel for FOR, Relationship Help, HELP. And I'll look forward to bringing you another guest with great insights for you. Take care.